is there a role for finance and banking helping the world?
So investments, insurance, banking, they have a big role to play to channelize this. As a bank, I am lending him, I have some influence on that person. People are not even aware of this. What is carbon? What is carbon? What can I do in my role? So I am in the area of sustainability and sustainable finance. It is a kind of a strategic change management role where I am kind of working with the CEO and the management to embed sustainability into the whole bank. So it's like a strategic role. If just the mandate given to me was, yeah, Ashish, this sustainability is a thing now coming on. A lot of questions are being asked by outside stakeholders, key bank. So you know what is in different ways, rating agencies about what is your sustainability record. So so exactly the way you're putting out, make it real. भाई करना क्या है basically? कुछ तो करना है. Everybody knows कि भाई कुछ तो करना है, but करना क्या है? Make it real. So now make it real is sustainable finance. So how do you divert the capital of the bank towards activities which drive or which are more positive to the climate? You know, like if you're saying fund a electric power plant or solar power plant or fund a renewable energy company, so that is the sustainable finance area. Then it's also about the corporate, that is baselining our sustain, like reporting. Earlier when you used to talk of sustainability, it was more कि बहने कि यार I have done some community activities there or here, or you know something, you know, CSR. It was mainly CSR. So it is not only CSR, it is all about, it's all about baselining our data points, like what are my emissions, what is my emission intensity, measuring them, keeping and about even social aspects, my governor, how many, what is the diversity, how many nationalities I have, what is the number of women in my senior middle management, and reporting it and systematically tracking it over periods.
Is this only about your bank or also about the customers and every business? I mean, which, what's it called? Level one, grade one, two, three, this, that, right?
Emissions, okay, I mean, I think you're talking of emissions. So when you talk of
Yeah.
emissions of an entity, the protocol, the GHG protocol, that is
Mm.
greenhouse gas emission protocol, which is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
standard, it talks of three types of emissions: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3.
Mm.
So scope 1 emission is the emissions which are caused by the entity in its own business. For example, in a bank, I am burning petrol and diesel in my generators. That is the emission which is caused in my premises, in my operations. So that is my scope 1. A
Right.
steel plant is having a furnace. It is burning coal in the furnace. So that is emission which is caused in the premises. That is scope 1 emission of an
Mm.
entity. Scope 2 emission is emissions caused on account of things I purchase. So for me, for example, I am purchasing power. Now the emissions on account of power are not caused in my premises, but are caused by the power generating company because I'm purchasing power from
Mm.
them. So the emissions based on the electricity I purchase are scope 2 emissions, and scope 3 emissions are emissions in my value chain. So I might be having suppliers, I might be having buyers, I might be procuring things from them. So for a bank, the customers whom I finance,
Yeah.
so their emissions on account of what I finance is my scope 3 emissions.
So
So
this scope one, two, three, is that only for emissions, or do you see other ESG? Do you track that on scope one and two and three principles? Only emissions and only carbon, or do emissions go beyond carbon?
no, so I mean, again, going as taking a step back, emissions. Again, I mean, again, just giving a very dummy 2 minutes of climate science. Now, what
Huh.
is in terms of climate change? What is happening is greenhouse gases are something. If you know your basic science, it envelops the Earth. You know, there is a layer of greenhouse gases which envelops the Earth, and greenhouse gases, they prevent sun's heat from going escaping back out of Earth's atmosphere. When the sun's heat falls, greenhouse gas trap that heat onto the Earth, and that is the reason why there is life on Earth. Because if there were no greenhouse gases, Earth would be a very cold place and life wouldn't sustain. So that is so greenhouse gases are not bad, but what is happening since the industrial revolution, mainly when the cars and factories have started coming, the amount of greenhouse gases emitted by human generated activities has started increasing. So what happens is, because there are more and more greenhouse gases, there is more and more heat getting trapped into the Earth's atmosphere, because of which the surface temperature of the Earth is rising. So if you see the temperature of the Earth's surface, say from over the 100 years, you can see a upward sloping graph, and especially after 1940s this graph has started going up, because it's akin to the post-World War industrial revolution phenomenon where factories, cars, etc. came up. Earth's surface temperature has been going rises. So greenhouse gases there are broadly 3-4 types of greenhouse gases very quickly. One most common is carbon dioxide. It is loosely called as carbon. Again, 80% because of what we breathe,
Mm.
the fuels we burn, you emit carbon dioxide. It is 80% of the greenhouse gases. There is methane, which is about 10 to 12% of greenhouse gas emissions are methane. Methane comes again from fossil fuels, but it also comes from
Garbage
agriculture.
dumps.
It comes
Garbage dumps
from
have a lot of
yeah,
methane, right?
landfills, your animal processing. That's why meat, etc., has got to do a lot with methane thing. Then there are other greenhouse gases like HFCs, which are mainly aerosols, air conditioning, refrigeration, and there are a lot of other things. Now the point again is, one thing to remember is carbon dioxide may be 80% of all the greenhouse gases, and methane and other may be less, but in terms of potency the others are far more potent. I mean, when you talk of potency, you talk of the ability to measure 1 unit of greenhouse gas and the impact it has on the temperature rise. So just loosely saying, if the potency of methane I think is about 500 to 600 times of carbon, potency of HFC maybe 1000, 1500, or maybe even some greenhouse gases can be 5000 times as
Right.
more as potent.
Why is the world going after carbon credits? Why not after methane credits?
No,
Why not
so
after
it is
something
more
else?
again a accounting thing. It is not about
Mm.
carbon credits or anything. So again, in a very loosely, very crude way, I will say if you have multiple currencies, I have a pound, I have a dollar, I have a rupee, their potencies, I mean, when you say value, the potency of greenhouse gases is different. I may have $1 but 50 rupees, but the potency of that dollar is more than rupee. So if I have to talk
Right.
about my net worth, I have to equate everything to one baseline, right? So similarly, if I am emitting greenhouse gases, I can't say I am emitting this much of carbon dioxide, this much of methane, this. There are 20 types of greenhouse gases. So everything is baselined to carbon. So it is not that when you say I am emitting so much of carbon, it is not carbon, it is carbon dioxide.
Right.
So entity is emitting 2 tons of carbon dioxide doesn't mean it is only emitting tons of carbon dioxide. It is something loosely saying my net worth is so and so dollars, $100 million or whatever. It doesn't mean you only have dollars. You have other currencies.
Is there a role for finance and banking helping the world reduce or even account for uh, whether it's carbon credits or 100 other parameters? And what is that role if there is?
No, so I'll again, as I said, I know very forget instruments, etc. What is so if you just take a step back, COP. What is COP? In a very simple terms, COP is a conference of parties. It is basically all countries meeting every year to take a stock on what is happening, what was we agreed, what did we do, what we did not do. It's a global stock take of countries,
Hmm.
nothing more than that. So I think it was in Paris 2015. You will hear this term Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
A lot of things,
Yes.
Paris Agreement. So in 2015 in Paris, which was COP21, there was, I mean, I mentioned about the temperature rise. So there was an agreement that we have to limit this temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. Okay, 1.5 degrees to the. So how this 1.5 degrees is done is they take the temperature which existed, average temperature in the 1940s as a zero baseline, and you are measuring the rise from that. So you want to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degree to 2 degrees and well below 1.5 degrees. That was the agreement. And the second most pivotal point in that COP was that the recognition that if you have to drive this change, government money is not going to be enough. You need to have private money coming into this to drive this change. And who are the custodians who drive private money, who hold private money, is the financial institutions, insurance. It's not only banking, it's insurance. In fact, before banking, this has come into investments.
Mm.
So investments, insurance, banking, they have a big role to play to channelize this private capital into areas which fight climate change. So
Right.
that is where this whole thing about sustainable finance. So banks, for example, one very simple thing is to fund businesses which fight climate change. That is a simple thing you can think of. that I will fund a solar plant, I will fund this, I will fund a electric vehicle manufacturing. As I mean, assuming it is green, there is a debate on that. That's a separate thing. But I will fund things which are green or which fight climate change. The other important thing also, which is not so much seen, this is the very easy, glamorous part, if I may say, of green finance. The other part is also embedding sustainability issues into my regular lending. So even if I am lending to a company which may not be anything to do with green, but the moment I start asking him 10 questions, ki, do you have a sustainability report, what is your this policy, do you have environmental policy, hopefully it will trigger some action from their end, because as a bank I am lending him, I have some influence on that person. And if I start asking, if 10 banks start asking him that question, it will promote some action. So that is also role as an important influencer in channelizing capital, that you can drive this change. So if you see
But
now
don't
in
you
most of
think
the
that is the
banks,
type of thing that leads to behaviors like what greenwashing and just people trying to say कि हम ये भी कर रहे हैं वो भी कर रहे हैं, but actually the core of the business is nothing related.
yeah, look, I mean, I mean, you can have the half glass half full or glass half empty, that kind of thing. So just because there are people doing greenwashing doesn't mean everybody. And I am again, I am of the view here that even as regulators, you need to be a little liberal. So again, greenwashing. So in fact, these days, I don't know if you are hearing, there's a big reverse. There's a term called green hushing. There is a concern that now, because this greenwashing thing is going so far, that now businesses are genuinely scared of even telling anything that they are doing green.
Okay.
There's a big fear that businesses don't. There's a green hushing is now a concern. That again, so when you talk of greenwashing, there is intent and malice. Now, if somebody is doing purely out of malice, then okay, fine, you punish him, fine him. But genuinely, there is so much of confusion in this, that what is green, what is not green. I mean, I do something and I say it's green without any
Hmm.
malice, I think it should be
Yeah,
okay.
it should be okay,
If
but
it's
I'll
causing the
give you my
whole,
example. The non-malice part, of course, the malice part is very clear. Every second startup, and it's which have nothing to do with climate, nothing to do with everything, they spend half of their 20-minute pitch that they tell me in the first meeting about how they are meeting UN SDGs, how they are meeting these COP goals, climate change goals, and all that. And I'm like, यार अपने प्रोडक्ट के बारे में बात करो यार, कस्टमर क्या है, प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट मेरे को बताओ, मेरे को नहीं सुनना कि तुम बाकी क्या कर रहे हो, all that. मतलब you're not going to get funding for that.
So, Ashish, tell us something about a project that you have done.
no, so that I was again, I'm saying, so on a day-to-day basis now my role has multiple things. So like I said, one is corporate. So now getting the reporting in place. I think I mean what I'm saying is very easy, but to even put these systems in place to be able to track this, you need to, which branch is consuming what power, which branch is consuming what power. Now because again, remember, now this is a board level topic, so I have to now report to the board these KPIs. So the ability to track this enterprise wide KPIs, manage them, report them, see what is moving, see not what, that is one. So whole thing about corporate sustainability. The other part is what Manish was saying, is embedding it into my financing decisions. So the kind of looking at which are the customers who are high risk on sustainability, where do we need to do more due diligence. So I need to figure out, my CEO will ask me, okay, do this or this. And there are so many, this area is evolving so fast that every time there is some new. Now next year we are having the IFRS standards coming into this. Now even now today there is a linkage between your financial statements and sustainability statements from next year, that it will have impact on capital. Now I am supposed to look at my portfolio to look at which are the industries which are prone to climate risk, and do some sensitivity analysis, and now put a capital charge to that. So all these things are happening. So there are multiple areas which, it's one, your corporate thing, your financial thing, your risk profile. So that is why I said it's something which encompasses the whole organization. There's awareness is a big. So I am working a lot with HR, because there's a whole, like what I am telling you guys, people are not even aware of this. What is carbon, what can I do in my role. So uplifting the whole organization to a particular level on sustainability, that is a large part of my role. So